the ordinary visit. Daniel had always thought of Emily as the strongest person he knew. She carried herself with quiet grace, a calm smile that never wavered even during the hardest storms of their marriage. But lately, something had changed. Her laughter came less often. Her eyes seemed shadowed, as though she carried secrets too heavy to share. That morning, Emily had nearly fainted while pouring herself a cup of coffee. Her hands trembled as the porcelain mug slipped, shattering on the tiled floor. Daniel rushed to her side, his heart tightening. "We're going to the hospital," he insisted. Emily tried to argue, brushing it off as stress, but Daniel was firm. Within the hour, they were sitting side by side in the quiet waiting area of the hospital, fluorescent lights buzzing faintly above. Daniel squeezed her hand, searching her face for reassurance. "It's probably nothing," he whispered. She gave him a faint smile, but her silence spoke louder than any words. When the nurse called her name, Emily followed obediently, clutching the small plastic cup she had been handed for a routine urine test. Daniel watched her disappear behind the door, never suspecting how much that small test would change everything. The whisper. Emily returned a few minutes later, pale but calm, sitting beside Daniel once more. She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder, as if needing the safety of his presence. The doctor soon entered, holding a file in his hand. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes lingered on Emily a moment too long before shifting to Daniel. "Mr. Reynolds," the doctor said softly. "Could I speak to you for a moment?" Daniel rose, confused, following the man just a few steps away from Emily. The doctor's voice dropped to a whisper. "Call the police immediately." For a moment, Daniel thought he had misheard. His chest tightened, breath catching in his throat. I don't understand. Why?" The doctor's lips pressed together, as though he carried a truth too heavy to say outright. His hand gripped Daniel's shoulder briefly. "For her safety and yours, please. Trust me." Daniel's mind spun. He glanced back at Emily, who sat quietly, unaware of the storm breaking around her. She looked so small, so fragile, as if she could break apart at any moment. Why would the doctor say that? What had the test revealed? Daniel's heart pounded as he walked back to his wife, trying to mask his fear with a smile. Emily looked up at him, her eyes wide with concern. "Is everything okay?" she asked. He forced a nod, though his voice faltered. Yes, everything's fine." But nothing felt fine anymore. Unraveling secrets. The hospital placed Emily under quiet observation, citing the need for further tests. Daniel sat by her side, his thoughts a storm of doubt and fear. Every time he tried to corner the doctor for answers, he was met with careful words, evasions, and quiet hints. "There are irregularities," the doctor finally admitted. "Something we could not ignore. Please, Mr. Reynolds, it's complicated." That word, complicated, cut through Daniel like a knife. He began replaying recent weeks in his mind. The sudden headaches Emily had complained about. The late-night phone calls she always took in another room. The moments when she seemed lost in thought, distant and unreachable. He remembered her sudden insistence on locking her purse, her trembling hands when he once asked too many questions. Had she been hiding something all along? Daniel's chest ached as he glanced at his wife. She sat on the hospital bed, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She looked up at him and tried to smile, but her eyes betrayed her. They were filled with unspoken fear. "Daniel," she whispered, "you believe me, don't you?" He wanted to answer immediately, to tell her yes without hesitation. But the doctor's words echoed endlessly in his mind. "Call the police immediately." The shattered trust. By the next morning, the hospital no longer felt safe. Quietly, officers lingered in the halls, their presence too obvious to ignore. Emily noticed them first, her voice trembling as she asked, "Why are they here?" Daniel avoided her eyes. "It's just precaution." "Precaution for what?" She pressed, her voice rising, her fear raw. "Daniel, tell me what's going on." The weight in his chest finally broke. The doctor said the test showed something serious. "He told me to call the police." Emily's face drained of color. Tears welled in her eyes as she shook her head. No, no, it's not what you think. Her voice cracked as she reached for his hands. Please, Daniel, I didn't mean for this to happen. I was scared. I thought I could handle it. His heart broke at the sight of her desperation. He wanted to pull her into his arms, to protect her, but the shadow of doubt loomed. What is it, Emily? What have you been hiding from me? Her silence was louder than any confession. The doctor entered then, carrying the weight of truth in his eyes. Mr. Reynolds, Mrs. Reynolds, the results show evidence that required us to alert the authorities. It isn't about crime. It's about safety. Emily needs protection. The emotional reckoning. The truth unraveled slowly, painfully. Emily had been living under the shadow of someone else's mistakes. Someone close to her had placed her in danger without her knowing, and the test had revealed traces of what she had unknowingly carried. The police weren't there to take her away, but to protect her. The danger wasn't Emily herself, but the invisible chains that had wrapped around her life without her consent. Daniel sat at her bedside, tears blurring his vision as Emily wept in his arms. I didn't want to worry you, she whispered. I thought if I stayed strong, it would all go away. I was wrong. He held her tightly, his voice breaking. You should have told me. We could have faced this together. The story was no longer about secrets or suspicion. It was about survival, trust, and the fragile strength of love when tested by shadows. In the end, Daniel chose not to walk away. He chose to stand by her, to fight the storm hand in hand. Because love, he realized, wasn't about perfection or unbroken trust. It was about holding on, even when everything else threatened to fall apart. And though the doctor's whisper had shattered his world, it had also forced open the truth. Painful, yes, but freeing. For the first time in months, Emily looked at Daniel with eyes unclouded by fear. And in that moment, he knew they would rebuild together.